Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the cEDH cast. My name is Ian, and with me always is my co-host Braden.
Hey guys!
On this week's episode, we are taking a request by a number of our listeners, and we are going to break down the decks that we personally play. But before we get into any of that, we have to do our weekly patron shout-out. Braden, do you want to hit us up?
This week, our special patron is Zach M. Thank you, Zach, for being a competitor patron.
Yeah, thank you very much, Zach. It is greatly appreciated. Yeah, thank you so much for everyone who's out there supporting us on Patreon right now. We have actually hit a wonderful milestone where we are taking in $69 a month. So, hey-o.
I'm dabbing right now. You just can't see it.
I hate it. So, this week we were checking out stuff in the community, and it's actually been quiet for a little bit, which is nice compared to how the past month has been. So, we're just going to move right on to the main topic, the decks we play. Braden, do you want to start us off with your list?
Sure, so the list I'm going to be talking about today is medium green. I actually wrote a primer for medium green, so if you're interested in how the deck works, you should look up the primer. The name of the primer is Medium Green, How to Be Medium and Not Die Trying. So, medium green is my pet deck. I've been playing it for quite a while, and it's built for a very specific meta that I see in my own playgroups. So, certain times of the year, it's way more aggressive against artifact mana. Other times of the year, it plays cards like Smothering Tithe and Notion Thief to take advantage of Opus Thief being more popular. It really changes from week to week what the actual slots are, but at its core, it's a consultation deck that uses creature-based mana to get ahead of your opponents using the card advantage available through Thrasios. Additionally, it plays a really strong fish plan, where you play cards like Finale, Devastation, Eldritch Evolution, and Neoform to be able to get Spellseeker or Thassa's Oracle. Spellseeker gets your Demonic Consultation, and Thassa's Oracle obviously wins the game with Demonic Consultation. So that's like plan A or B depending on the table, with the other plan being the grindy plan I just mentioned. Some of the slots that we have that we mix around are cards like Smothering Tithe, Null Rod, Collector Oof, Aven Mind Sensor, Biomancer's Familiar, Windfall, Time Twister. Cards like that, cards that either play into a certain plan or punish another plan, depending on what your meta looks like. The deck's a lot of fun to play. You get to play really big medium cards like Seedborn Muse, Faber Elder, and Smothering Tithe. So cards with a high converted mana cost, because we're just making so much mana thanks to Gaia's Cradle and all of our dorks. We play 4 dorks that make a ton of mana. We play Incubation Druid, which off of a Neoform makes 3 mana because Neoform puts a counter on it. We play Bloom Tender, we play Faber Welder, and we play Priest of Titania. Those 4 dorks make tons of mana that we can feed into our Thrasios or feed into permanents or spells like Finale of Devastation or Green Sentient. And we have a ton of ways to tutor up the specific cards we need for a specific situation. One thing I forgot to mention is that we play Freed from the Real, which goes infinite with all those dorks I just talked about, except for Priest of Titania, but usually if you're making 12 mana on a Priest of Titania and you're untapping it for 1 mana, you basically have infinite mana, so it works out pretty well. That's most of the deck. Ian, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just since it is your baby, what need did you think you were filling by brewing it up?
Sure, so originally the deck played Collector Oof and Null Rod, and that was because I found that my meta was super dependent on artifact mana, and I wanted to punish them while also playing a really good deck. So I kind of just brewed a CST list that could also play Null Rod and Collector Oof. Originally the deck was a pod deck where I would pod into different hate bears while also playing a Thrasios and Tymna plan. And I found that the pod plan was really bad, but the Seedborn Muse plan was really good, and the hate plan was really good. So I just kind of went deeper and deeper into that and just started playing generically better cards along with them, and the deck just kept getting better. And then finally when Fish came out, I realized I should probably just be on Neoform, which then made me think, if I'm on Neoform to get Fish, and I'm on Freed from the Real to go infinite with Faber Welder, I might as well just play Incubation Druid, and I feel like it layers all together really well.
That's very interesting, yeah.
It's been very successful. I think the deck is very, very powerful. I think it's probably one of the more powerful decks that isn't Fishhulk, to be honest. So if you want to play the most powerful decks in the format, but you specifically hate Flashhulk, this is probably an interesting angle to examine the format on, especially if you like playing cards like Rest in Peace or Ristic Study, Smothering Tide, Training Grounds.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have noticed that, especially when I play against it or I've seen you play, it's just a value grind deck. You maximize the value on each of your cards because your deck is basically a Seaboard Muse deck, and anyone who's played that card either in competitive EDH or in casual EDH knows that it is a powerhouse by itself. And knowing that, like, that's the kind of deck it is, and I really enjoy playing a game with it in the pod because it always leads to really interesting games.
Yeah, one thing I'll say is that if you like Seaboard Muse, like if that's like a pet card of yours, I think you'll love the deck. We have so many ways of putting it into play. It's very rare that you don't have the card on the battlefield at some point. And if you can protect it, you'll probably win or at least be very impactful in the game. And it's okay if you lose, but you often want to feel like you at least did something. And when there's Seaboard Muse in play with a Thrasios, you feel like you're doing a lot.
Yeah, that's an amazing engine to have going on, especially if you have something like a Training Grounds or a Biomancer's Familiar out in the field.
Yeah, exactly. And then those actually like are helpful with your other plan too. So like, sure, those cards are really good value engines, but we're also now on Incubation Druid, and so making the Incubation Druid cost only 3 makes it so that it's mana neutral, which is really interesting.
Yeah, because initially it is 3 green.
So going down to 1 green means that it immediately taps for as much mana as you paid into it, which can be very important on Freed from the Real turns.
Oh, definitely. As a pilot of the deck, what is something that someone may not get even with the primer right away? What is sort of an inclination you have when you play it?
I will say Gaia's Cradle is like one of the best cards in the whole deck, which is, I don't know, like I've never played a Gaia's Cradle in a blue deck before this deck.
Right.
And Gaia's Cradle with Seaboard Muse is absolutely disgusting. It is absurd. And the best part is that like I have Vampire tutored for Gaia's Cradle before, where I untap with Seaboard Muse, and then during my first turn I hold up all this mana, I Vampire tutor for Gaia's Cradle, I put it on top of my library, activate Thrasios, put the Gaia's Cradle into play. When I untap into my next opponent's turn, I can then tap my Gaia's Cradle, basically draw 2 cards. If I have like 6 dudes in play, Gaia's Cradle draws like 1.5 cards. Or if I have a Gaia's Cradle and a Training Grounds effect, that game's over.
Yeah.
I've tapped Gaia's
awesome.
Cradle to draw a fresh 7 before. Because I've had a Biomancer's Familiar, a Training Grounds, a Thrasios, and like 5 Dorks. And just been like...
That's insane.
Tap Gaia's Cradle, draw 7. So the card is very powerful.
Crazy. Now, I have to say, it seems like the deck struggles in a board wipe meta. How do you deal with that?
You just don't overextend, really.
Yeah.
That's what our enchantments are for, to be honest. If you're in a board wipe heavy meta, which I play in one now, I have a few opponents who are like playing board wipes, and I just don't overextend as much. If they don't have the board wipe, a lot of the times you win. And if they do have the board wipe, that's why you have cards like Mystic Remora, Carpet of Flowers, Rest in Peace, Ristic Study, Smothering Tide, Sylvan Library, and Training Grounds. You try to put permanents on the battlefield that draw cards after a board wipe. There's also like Time Twister. That's how I think you combat it, is you mulligan extremely aggressively. I lost a game on Tuesday because I mulled a 4 because I just kept seeing hands that died to board wipes. And I know there are hands in the deck that don't die to board wipes, that are more rock based or have a permanent that doesn't die to a board wipe. But I like lost the game because I just mulliganed to 4. It's definitely like a problem.
Yeah.
But
that's good to know if you're gonna go pilot the list. Yeah.
Yeah. But, like, as I said, like, a lot of the time you can just mulligan until you see a hand. There are a ton of keepable 5s in this deck. And so I mulled to 5, and my 5 had no lands, and so that forced me to go to 4. So sometimes that happens.
Right.
But don't be at 6 and think, I don't want to go to 5. There's no keepable 5. There are so many keepable 5s. The problem is if you just accidentally hit one of the 5s that isn't keepable, you kind of get kicked out of the game, and that sucks. I was also in a 3-man pod, so it was especially punishing because there was so much less interaction for the table.
3-man pods are definitely the most punishing pods.
So maybe the lesson is don't mull to 5 in a 3-man pod, but generally, like, I feel really fine mulliganing. That's probably a criticism a lot of my friends probably have for me, is I mulligan too much, but that's just because there's so many good hands in this deck. There's no reason to keep one that isn't great.
It's funny because, like, the average Magic player does not mulligan enough, but you are definitely the only player I know who's like, just mulligan it. Like, you are... It's so funny you go so aggro on mulligans, but, like, I've seen it pay off for you a lot, so...
Yeah, I think the mulligan is broken in Commander. It is just objectively broken, and so there's no reason not to just take advantage of it. And whenever I see players keep sketchy hands, I'm always just like, why? Like, you have a fresh 7, or if you don't have a fresh 7, you have 6, and you get to see 7 cards. Every hand has a bad card in it.
Yeah.
Usually, it's really rare you don't have a hand that's like, oh, this card doesn't do anything for the first 5 turns.
Yeah, see, you say that, and now I've like looked at. I was like old fishing some decks this weekend, and I kept getting hands. I was like, oh, that's 1 land. That's no lands. That's 5 lands. What the?
Yeah. Well, if you like, for example, if you mull to 5 and you see a hand that's 5 lands and 2 amazing permanents, like a Mystic Remora and a Carpet of Flowers, you just put the 2 lands to the bottom, and now your hand's
Yeah,
like
sure.
somewhat keepable. So the mulligan system is broken in my opinion, and people don't mulligan enough. Oh, one thing I'll say is that if you have a meta where you expect to see cards like Linvala or Cursed Totem, just make sure you're packing a little bit more spot removal. I'm playing Rapid Hybridization right now as a flex spot because I see Linvala, and so I just have to have that extra piece of removal I can tutor for, or at least reliably draw into. So
Cursed totem, cursed totem, cursed totem.
yeah, Cursed Totem is amazing. So just be aware that Cursed Totem completely shuts your deck down. I mean, it really doesn't because Timna is broken, but just be aware that that is a card that has to constantly be on your radar. Like, which deck's about to play Cursed Totem? Something you should be thinking about sometimes. And so just make sure you have an answer for that situation, and be incredibly greedy with your answers, because you just want to like tap out, play the best permanent in your hand, and pass, and then just make the rest of the table do everything for you. Like, this deck relies on you being incredibly greedy and unkind to your opponents. You have a lot of interaction, but you also just have a lot of permanents that you have to tap out for sometimes. And don't be afraid to do that.
Sweet.
Unless your opponents are all in a Yisan or something, then you really can't do that. But if you're playing like in a pot of the top decks that are all in interaction, don't be afraid to just be like, alright, I'm tapping out for this. You guys better have an answer for it, or whatever's happening after I do this.
Yeah, certain times you just gotta go for the greed. It depends on the deck, but yeah.
Yeah, like Seaborn Muse, if you have a Seaborn Muse in your hand, it's like turn 4 or turn 3, and you already have a Thrasios in play, just jam it. They'll either have an answer or they won't. And if they do and they waste it on your Seaborn Muse, I mean, not waste, but if they use it on your Seaborn Muse and you use to flash, maybe they won't do that next time.
Very true. So Braden is going to go deep on that one deck, whereas I am on a number of lists that I will probably talk about in a shallower vein. Right now, the first deck I want to talk about is Opus Thief, which is the list generated by Shaper Savant. It is the wheel control / some people call it a storm deck. I don't know if I agree with that descriptor, but it is what it is. It's basically a deck based around leveraging advantage with cards like Smothering Tithe, Notion Thief, Alms Collector, all cards that shut down or gain you advantage when your opponents would draw extra cards. So you play those cards in combinations with something like a Time Twister or a Wheel of Fortune, and basically either leverage the advantage that way, and you know, if you resolve a wheel with a Notion Thief out, suddenly your opponents aren't drawing any cards, and you're drawing like 28 cards if you're in a 4-man pod. Things like that gain you a lot of advantage, obviously. It's a 4-color combination manned by Timna and Crom, which is really awesome because a lot of the time, if you run into a creature board stall match, you can have Timna out and have Crom flying over the top, whacking people for 4, gaining you a lot of advantage. It's a really fun deck.
I've died to commander damage from Crom.
Yeah, dude, Crom thumps. It's a very strong card, and its static ability, people underestimate it all the time. In the average cEDH game, I think its static ability is triggered at least twice going around the table. And that's like a pretty conservative bet. So yeah, the deck relies on those wheel synergies, Crom and Timna, to gain you a lot of card advantage. It's obviously in everything but green, so it's running a lot of your classics like Necropotence, Rhystic Study, all of those cards. It's on Underworld Breach and Yawgmoth's Will right now, which is really awesome when you're trying to leverage the advantage of casting wheels, because suddenly graveyards are stocked because of things like Windfall and other wheels like that. So it allows you to really have these explosive turns toward the late part of the game. It's actually really interesting, and all the way back to episode 2, Shaper Savant was on, and he talked about why this deck is actually reasonably positioned in the current meta against Fishhulk, and it's because you can do something called disrupting the sculpt, which is a lot of Flash players will sit there with their Flash, their Protean Hulk in their hand, or a tutor that will allow them to go get it, and a bunch of counter magic or things like Silence or Grand Abolisher waiting till the right time to jam those pieces out and go for the win. With Opus Thief, you have the opportunity to be wheeling them constantly so they don't have the chance to really make this protected Flash hand. And that's a really powerful advantage to gain. And in the end, the deck attempts to win classically with Demonic Consultation or Tainted Pact, and an effect like Jace, Wielder Mysteries with Thassa's Oracle, or Laboratory Maniac. So it's a consult win, and it's a really, really fun, grindy deck. If you like really interactive games, if you like some like explosive turns where you wheel with a Smothering Tithe and then you have like 30 mana out, it's a really awesome time and a really great deck to play. It's actually funny, the first time I ever took it to a store, I play in the group that Shaper Savant does, and I played it in the mirror against him, and I was like, oh, okay, well, now it's time for him to kick my butt with his own deck. That's fine.
The first time I beat Shaper with one of his own decks was one of the happiest days of my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's frustratingly good at the game. Sometimes I just want to beat him, you know? And he's like, Adnos on turn 2.
Yeah.
I die.
I think we all have a lot of Magic Fest New Jersey turn 2 ad nauseum PTSD.
Oh, I definitely do. My opponent cast a Dark Ritual on turn 2 the other day. Flashbacks to
And you were like,
right
oh
away.
no.
They just wanted to turn 2 Smothering Tide, though.
I've seen a turn 2 Smothering Tithe go pretty bad too, though, to be fair.
Yeah, into the turn 3 Twister is,
Speaking of Shaper, he hit us with the turn 1 Smothering Tithe, turn 2 Twister a couple of weeks ago, and that was pretty rough.
That's the worst. Then he could just drop Crom, drop Timna, attack with Crom to get another card.
I think that's literally what he did, yeah.
Oh, it's so sad.
I don't know. I'm going to make my second land drop, I guess.
Play a couple spells into the Crom and go. It's really funny how like good Crom is with wheels. Like there's actually like a lot of synergy there.
Oh yeah, because you're filling up hands and then suddenly Crom is like triggering. That's very interesting. I'd actually never thought about that.
Really?
Yeah, no, that never crossed my mind. Well, I mean, it's happened. I just never like, huh.
Yeah, I play wheels into Rhystic Study or Mystic Remora all the time and very intentionally.
Oh, that's so good. I love doing that.
I'll be like, do I really want to refill everyone's hand? And then I'll look down at my Rhystic Study and be like, yeah, I think I do.
Yeah, it's a really good place to be.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. The next list I'm going to talk about is my list that I've been affectionately calling El Diablo. You may all know it as the devil itself, Fish Hulk. I have the list lead up. I'm playing it. I play my own version with some flex slots, as we talked about a few episodes ago. I did change a couple of those. I cut Spell Snare and I cut Autumn's Veil, which I was running for a while, and I replaced them with Cyclonic Rip and Fabro Elder. And I realized I was playing the deck as a really good grind deck, grinding out really intense games, but my deck was built to be a fast combo deck with some of the flex slots, and I was like, that's a contradiction, and I want to have the deck match my playstyle. So that's what happened with that. We don't really have to talk about it very much because Fish Hulk is Fish Hulk. We all know what happens. Moving on. I have another one on here, which is pretty spicy. It is the new Titan from Theros Beyond Death. I am playing Sick Robots Croxa, Titan of Death Hunger list. I literally just sleeved it up 2 days ago and am going to be playing it next Monday. So by the time you hear this episode, I'll probably have jammed a couple games. Might tweet out about it, might throw something up in the Discord about how it went. It should be really fun. It looks like a really fun list. I have wanted to play a World Gorger list for a really long time, and I prefer Croxa significantly over Angie or Anya. It's a Rakdos World Gorger list that can run Curse Totem, so you know it caught my eye. I know when we were talking about it in the set review. Yeah,
I had not
that's the difference.
That.
Yep.
That changes everything.
Right, I know when we were talking about the set review, we were like, it's just kind of a worse Anya, but then I realized that, and I was like,
God.
oh, now we changed the entire game.
That's so cool. I had no idea. That's amazing. Because, like, that's been the problem, right?
Yeah.
You're in red-black, and you have to play cards like Curse Totem to keep in the game, and you don't get to. That's so cool. I had no idea. That changes the whole list, in my opinion.
Because Rakdos has a lot of the best board wipes in the format, it's, like, pretty decently positioned against decks that are relying on a lot of on-board presence. It's running Fire Covenant, Toxic Deluge, Pyroclasm, Rolling Earthquake. A lot of those effects, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, and then a lot of the rest of the deck is sort of hand hate, which is very interesting to see. I get to, because actually Opus Thief recently cut Waste Knot from the deck, I now get to play my Waste Knot again in this deck, so that's fun.
That's so powerful.
Got a little
it's
good
so
Waste
cool. That sounds like so much fun. I thought this deck was so bad.
Yeah.
Now I'm like really liking it.
It's pretty spicy. It also runs Cloudstone Curio because there's some Dockside Extortionist loops you can go through, so that's pretty fun.
Neat.
It's interesting. I'm really excited to actually get to play it and then come back and report how it does. So look forward to that maybe within the next week. Now, for lists I have been playing significantly longer. The first one I'm going to talk about is Elsha of the Infinite. This deck I have been on for, I want to say at least 3 months now, and it's definitely a pet deck of mine. You've probably heard me mention it a lot. I know I talk about the Discord probably every other episode. I do adore this deck. I do have my own version of the list. It is up on Scryfall right now. Recently, there was a huge change to the list with the advent of Underworld Breach. Basically, every Dramatic Scepter line was cut from the deck when that happened. The point of Elsha, because it allows you to cast cards from the top of your library at any time, you assemble Sensei's Divining Top and a cost reducer so that you can draw your entire deck for free because you play Sensei's Top off the top of your library due to Elsha's ability, and then you use Top's ability to tap it and draw a card and replace it with the top card of your library. This allows you for free to draw your entire deck. Now, it used to be the case that the list would then play all of its free mana rocks and go for Isochron Scepter Dramatic Reversal lines. That, according to the primer I was following, is no longer the case. They are on Underworld Breach and using a lot of things like Smothering Tithe, Time Twister loops to basically be the outlet at that point of the game. I personally have been playing the deck for a really long time, and I didn't think that was the best way to go for the list. I think that assembling your reducer and draw is really important to be able to like win at that time, like as soon as possible after that resolves. So I actually kept in the Isochron Scepter Dramatic Reversal line. I can also link Flash Andretti's list if you want to know about that. He's also playing one of my least favorite cards in all of Magic, Lion's Eye Diamond. I know a lot of people love that card. I know Bomberman combo is huge, and I know these new Underworld Lion's Eye Diamond lists are like really popular. I've never enjoyed playing Lion's Eye Diamond. I hate that it makes you discard your hand and that you have to now be at the mercy of your opponents. It's never a place I want to be in a game. So I have basically split off from the traditional list at this point. Ironically, Braden, I think it was you who first pointed out that loop to our Discord, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And I was kind of surprised to hear that people are using it because a lot of people were saying it probably wouldn't be good enough.
Yeah, I genuinely didn't think it was the place to go, and obviously since I've created my own separate list, I still don't, but I am interested to see how they're doing with the list and how it changes in this current meta. One thing that I'm particularly afraid of with going for that loop is that I think you're really vulnerable to getting flashed over the top of when you go for that line. It seems like a very vulnerable line, so it's interesting, and I hope everyone has a lot of success with it, but just not my thing. Some spicy includes I like to point out in here. I was playing Niv Mizzet Perun for a bit, and that deck was running Spellskite to mitigate the fear of Gilded Drake and a lot of targeted removal. And because your commander is so important in Elsha, I have also slotted Spellskite in, and I'm very excited to have it in the deck.
I played a game recently where I Gilded Drake targeting the Spellskite, stole the Spellskite, then I think I bounced the Gilded Drake to my hand, and then Gilded Drake what I wanted.
That's pretty amazing. Honestly, if you did that to me, I'd be like, yeah, you deserve it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I forget exactly what happened.
This list is actually the list I think I've had the most technical competitive success with as far as like tournament structure wise, because when we were down at Command Fest DC, I was playing Elsha for that tournament, and I played back-to-back 2 days of just cEDH pods in the tournament settings, and Elsha got me to the top 4 of one of them and won me a number of games in another pod. So it was a really fun list to play, and by the end of the day, I was like, oh, like I get this list. I could jam this anytime, any day. As of late, my local meta has a couple Okos floating around, which is really rough for the list, and one of definitely the reasons I'm jamming in a Spellskite. All right, and the last list I currently have sleeved up is my Grand Arbiter Augustin the Fourth deck. This deck is more than any of my lists, definitely my pet deck. I'm aware that Grand Arbiter and Azorius in competitive EDH in general has a lot of flaws, especially in the win con department. I actually have some innovations that I'm pretty proud of with the list, and I'd love to hear your opinions on those in a minute, Braden. But Grand Arbiter is a 4 mana Tuke generic and Azorius commander that says opponents' spells cost 1 more to play, and your white spells cost 1 less to play, and your blue spells cost 1 less to play, which means that if you have a spell that is Azorius, blue and white, they actually cost 2 less to play. So this mana advantage allows you to put a lot of situations on your favor and on your side. I'm also playing a lot of cards like Sphere of Resistance, Tangle Wire, things like that to really slow down the board and make it so that everyone's kind of playing the same fair magic. I play a Rest in Peace, a lot of stacks effects in the deck. Now, traditionally, and Braden, you can go into this more if you want, I know Azorius has had a lot of trouble with just winning the game.
So, I haven't played a lot of Azorius in cEDH. I've played, the closest that I've played is Esper, which has a lot better ways of winning the game, in my opinion. But largely, for the most part, Azorius has a few problems winning the game. There's not a lot of ways to exile your deck, so all the lab mana options are out. None of the commanders are really good infinite mana outlets, so those options are out. And finally, most of the commanders aren't efficient enough that you could really use them as, like, win conditions. So, like, even if you want it, like, Crom can sometimes be a win condition when the table's locked out, right? Because it's a 4/4 flying haste. There really isn't any playable commanders like that can actually, like, with maybe like looping extra turns or by just stacking out the table that can actually win. So you're kind of left with a few win conditions. One of the most popular is Rest in Peace plus Helm of Obedience.
It's a 2-card combo that basically allows you to exile all of one person's library, which is problematic because you're trying to kill the whole table at once.
Yeah, so the problem with that win condition is that it's 2 plus 5 mana, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the pieces is a stacks piece, which is nice, but it's still 7 mana to kill one player and not each player. Now, if you're in stacks, that actually becomes less problematic because your opponents really can't do anything during their turns. So they might not be able to actually, like, do anything to stop you from winning the next turn. But it's still, like, not a great feeling. And you do get to kill the player that's most likely to have the answer. But, again, still not a great feeling.
Yeah.
Another popular win condition is infinite turns. So there's a Taigam deck that takes infinite turns. But a timely mana drain or any of the combat interaction in the format stops that.
Yeah.
And any wraths or removal spells for the commander really make that a lot harder. He does make your spells uncounterable, which I forgot for a moment, but it's not great. And you're also in blue-white, so there's not a lot of recursion, so there's like a lot of problems there. And there's not a lot of tutors either, so it's all a bit rough in blue-white. It's the reason there isn't really a tier 1 blue-white commander, even though there's so many good mono-blue commanders.
Right. So I've actually spliced together a lot of innovations with Grand Arbiter. I want to say there's 3 primers out right now that are sort of the centerpieces of each list. There's 2 on the cEDH deck list database, and there's actually 1 which is a recent submission to the library. And all of those lists have very specific ways that they plan to counteract the weaknesses of Azorius. Actually, one of the most recent lists is running Approach of the Second Sun as a win condition, which is absolutely crazy in my opinion. But I mean, I guess if it works, it works.
To be fair, it's not actually that much worse than Helm. It's about the same amount of mana, and it does kill each player.
Isn't it technically double?
I guess you're right. It does kill each player at the same time, but it also makes your shields down, so it's a little rough.
Yeah, it's definitely rough. So I've taken a bunch of the interesting pieces from each of those lists. There's a list that has a really interesting stasis lock with Smothering Tithe and Sun Titan. I've taken pieces from that. I've taken some pieces of my own, some things that I picked up playing the deck. A lot of the Grand Arbiter decks aren't running Sphere of Resistance, which I think is absolutely wild.
They're not?
Yeah, right? Like
wild.
None of the primers for that deck are running Sphere of Resistance, and that blows my mind.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
It's so free, because your spells are already cheaper.
Yeah. And so I've taken a lot of the pieces from a bunch of different lists and thrown them together. And one thing that I think will help with the win condition, I've sort of have a 3-tier win condition system in place right now. The first is, as we've talked about, the Helm of Obedience Rest in Peace line, which is good because drawing a Helm of Obedience really stinks. Like, it sucks super hard. But Rest in Peace is a super playable card, and there are games where I will go out of my way to tutor for it. So that's totally fine. The next one is Card Draw Outlet, something like a Pull from Tomorrow or a Sphinx's Revelation, and the Isochron Dramatic Reversal Loop. And obviously with your whole deck in your hand, you can easily find a win from there. That's one way to win the game. And that was always a popular win con back when Paradox Engine was legal, because there was a Dramatic Reversal Paradox Engine version of the list that was really efficient at winning from there. But obviously the banning of Paradox Engine really inhibited that version of the list. At one point, I definitely did cut the Dramatic Reversal lines, but I actually put them back in because I am now playing Isochron Scepter, Mystical Tutor, and Nexus of Fate as a hope to take infinite turns with that loop.
That's
so
sick.
I have to test that loop out, but I'm pretty excited about how that's gonna go. I'm thinking that it may solve a lot of the clunky issues with the deck, because getting that combo together, the Isochron Scepter and Mystical Tutor, is really not that hard, and because Grand Arbiter is a cost reducer, keeping that loop going, even though it costs like 7 mana in total, really isn't that hard, especially because the deck grinds so well that you do often end up in positions where that's very reasonable as far as cost. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to test that list out at my local game store next week. If I'm not playing Croxa, depends on when my cards get in from the mail. But we'll see. And I'm really excited about playing that list with the new innovations from it. It is definitely my pet deck. As much as Medium Green is your baby, my Grand Arbiter list is mine. And I'm excited to play it and see how that goes.
Are you on Savine's Reclamation in that deck?
I am not. What are you thinking about it for?
So for Savine's Reclamation, I think the reason you should be playing it is it lets you return Isochron Scepter back from the graveyard.
Oh, yeah.
And it also lets you return any stacks pieces that have been put into the graveyard. So if they've destroyed a
Grafdigger's Gaze, Sphere Resistance, Tangle Wire.
And then if you cast it back from the graveyard, I'm pretty sure you get to choose 2 things. And that's pretty good.
Yeah, that in itself is pretty spicy. I've actually been thinking about Dance of the Manse in that spot.
It's cute, but nah.
Agree to disagree. I think the card is very good, and Grand Arbiter automatically gets you to X equals 2. So I think it's kind of better than Savine's Reclamation if I'm going to play an effect like that. But the reason I haven't played an effect like that in general is that I am quite often aggressively finding Rest in Peace in the deck. So for that
That's
reason, I haven't been playing it. But if there's a bunch of games in a row where I notice things like that happening, I would definitely be more likely to slot one of those cards in. Cool. So that is the end of our Decks We Play episode. I know it's going to be a medium length episode, but we just wanted to kind of let you guys know where we come from as people who play the format and really share the decks that we're passionate about, because there's a lot of really fun lists out there. And I know personally I am looking at a new list like every week. I know I said Croxa I just sleeved up, so I'm probably, the use of proxy is going to have a new list probably by the next time we record. So it's really fun to play in this format and brew in the space, and would love to hear in Discord about lists that people are playing. I know we pretty actively talk about that at the current moment, but any sort of innovation or fun new stuff that people are playing, we'd love to hear about it.
A great place for us to hear about it is on the Discord. The Discord is a great place for you to talk to us, ask us questions, ask for like a deck list, or ask to get us on a platform, or just harass us about a mistake you found in our episode or something you disagreed with. We're always looking to chat with people who enjoy our content, and the only way we can really improve is with feedback. So if you have any feedback on the episodes, we'd really appreciate if you hopped into the Discord and you gave us some of that feedback. Additionally, if you're a patron, you get access to secret channels that basically let you go not one-on-one with us, but ask us like specific questions or talk about certain topics or show off your bling. Additionally, depending on your Patreon tier, we have quarterly meetings, and we also have a suggestions channel. So if you have very specific suggestions, like you'd like us to talk about something specific, that's a great place to talk about it. So if you're interested, you should really hop on the Discord or become a patron and get access to those super secret Discord channels.
Yeah, it's really great to get to talk to the people that we have on there already, and I look forward to being able to talk to anyone who wants to join. We've started a really great community, and I'm very excited to keep that going.
Yeah, I've been really happy to talk to a lot of people in the community, like Walt, like Luca, like Vortan. It's really cool to feel like we're actually like creating a small community of people who enjoy the content. Please talk with us. I'm lonely. I need people to talk to.
You hear him, folks. He's desperate.
Desperate. I'm desperate for you to tell me I'm wrong about Flash Hulk or something. Please.
Well, on that very powerful note, thank you so much, Braden. Do you want to hit us up with where we can be found on social media?
Yeah, we are on Instagram at the cEDHcast. We're on Twitter at the cEDHcast. We're on Stitcher. We're on Spotify. We're on Discord. We're on SoundCloud. Oh, we're also on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel, cEDHcast. We just hit our 100th subscriber. I'm really excited for us to get to 420. Then we can make some memes.
Very awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another week of the cEDH cast. We are really excited to have everyone here, and we hope to hear from you guys in the Discord or on any form of our social media. So from the bottom of our hearts, thank you very much, and we hope you have an amazing week. Bye!